for a new book called Fantastica, the novel. And I'm going to do a kind of a combination of things. I like mostly just to talk to you. And I don't even like that part much. what I like is responding to whatever questions you might have. That's the give and take. That's more fun for me because I kind of know what I think and want to say. But
yeah. Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to the event tonight. I'm Michael, event host with RJ Julia. We're joined tonight by literary icon Tim O'Brien. We'll hear from Tim. We'll have time for questions, and then Tim will be signing, personalizing books back in the other room. A lot of familiar faces here tonight. I mean, is there anybody who's coming to RJ Julia for the first time? You've never been here before? Raise your hand. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming. Yeah, if you get lost, well. All right, so Tim O'Brien received the 1979 National Book Award for going after Cacciato. Among his other books are The Things They Carried. Maybe some of you have heard of it. That was a Pulitzer Prize finalist and the New York Times Book of the Century. And In the Lake of the Woods, which was a winner of the James Fenimore Cooper Prize. His new book is America Fantastica. A bank robbery by a disgraced journalist sparks a cross-country chase through a nation corroded by delusion and many other things. Boyd Halverson has one goal before the authorities catch up with him: settle a score with the man who destroyed his life. I'm sure that's something we can all relate to. Just get through before they catch up to us. Here to tell us more about his book and hopefully about himself, Tim O'Brien.
I thought I was supposed to.
You want the microphone?
Somebody walked away.
You want the microphone, Tim?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I would actually hold this book as reassurance. I'm not a public speaker. I'm a writer who spends his time alone in a room for 7 or 8 hours every day, including weekends, my birthday, my wife's birthday, my kid's birthday. But I do it every day. And when you're alone in a room, you're kind of talking, but you're talking, writing a book, you're talking to yourself and you're talking to the characters. This book I began writing 21 years ago. I got the first 18, some of it between 18 and 25 pages done. And I stopped writing for the next 20 years because my first child was born, a kid named Timmy, and then he was followed by another kid named Tad. And I knew I could not be a good father if I were spending that much time writing all the time. And even when I wasn't writing, sitting at the dinner table, the characters were still yapping away at me. They became, like, if I were to leave this room now, I met some of you and got in the car to drive back to New York. There is real, my characters, as you would be, like real people, because I've lived with them so long, I've listened to them talk and dialogue, and I've watched them do things throughout the book. So I could not be a good father that way, and one or the other. I had to go kind of cold turkey. Fortunately, my older kid now is over in London. He's at the London School of Economics, and on a junior year abroad, he goes to the University of Chicago. And the other kid is now a senior in high school. So when they reached sort of late adolescence, I was able to start writing again somewhere around the year 2019, which became the year that this book takes place. And we were from August 2019 to August 2020, but we all lived through during that period. The whole COVID thing happened during that period. The talk radio thing coming out with conspiracy theories, which is ludicrous stuff. Man never walked on the moon. Reptile man, the phone banks at the IRS. One of my favorites of the real conspiracy theories. And a whole bunch of other ones. Many of them attacking constitutional democracies, and then that began to eat at me. I found myself talking with the television and newscasts. News, so I yapped back at it. They didn't listen. I decided to write this book. It begins with a disease flooding America called mythomania. It's a real psychological, I didn't make that word up, it's a psychological disorder in which people, when they're despairing enough, desperate enough, despondent enough, dissed enough, substitute fantasy for reality. The world seems so bad to them that they begin living in a fantasy world. It explains a great deal of what mythomania means compulsive lying. That's what the diagnosis is. There are more formal word use of a thing called pseudologica fantastica. Sort of and fantasy, but falsehood, false fantasies. And the whole idea of fantasy began to interest me. In one sense, we need our fantasy that tomorrow will be better than today, or that Prince Charming will come along. Hang in there, don't quit. That there'll be life after death. I can live on through my books or through my children, through my good deeds. Fantasies help us keep going, daydreams. About tomorrow. The word fantasy means something in the future is going to appear. To make life better for me, more enjoyable, more spiritual, and more fulfilling. It also has a dangerous side, of course. There's a line from the poet William Butler Yeats. When you fed the heart on fantasy, the heart's grown brutal from the fear. And when the fantasies begin through lying, to begin hurting other people, including oneself, betraying others who are lives. So I created a character, his name is Boyd, it was mentioned in the introduction, who's a compulsive liar. He's a victim of this contagion of public lying. And he's lied about everything through almost his entire life. His age, his weight, his height, where he went to college, claims he played polo, and he's told these lies to the woman he married, who later divorced him because he would not stop lying. Not wouldn't, but couldn't. Reality for him had become a monster. He had a terrible childhood, again later in the book. His father seemed to actually hate him. He grew up in the wrong side of the tracks in Santa Monica, California, for a movie star land. And he was a paper boy for the Star, delivering Rosemary Clooney's paper. You're old enough to know if you watch. Most audiences, they gotta stop and say, George Clooney's aunt of George Clooney. Rob Roberts. And he always felt slighted and inferior, and began as a young boy making up lies about his own life, telling classmates his father was a fighter pilot, and telling his teachers lies about his home life. It's not good. He grew up, became a journalist, and you can't be a liar when you're a journalist. You're going to get in trouble, and he did. He submitted a resume riddled with lies. There wasn't a single factual statement in the whole resume. And eventually came out. He was fired in great disgrace. And he became then, he left Los Angeles and went up to a fictional town in Northern California called Fulda, and became a J.C. Penney store manager. And I want to read just the opening couple of pages of the book, partly so you get a feel for the tone of it. It's, I hope, funny. The, you can't reason with conspiracy theories. Reason off the window. I'm starting to work with reason with members of Congress. But there's a line from Socrates that I remember from high school. The object of our discussion is not that your words may triumph over mine, or that mine may gain a victory over yours, but that between us we might discover the most perfect truth. Well, that's out the window these days. Two sides are trying to arrive at accommodation, compromise, and for the good of our country. And so I thought, instead of writing a serious sort of sober book, I would write something funny. When I was in high school also, I read a essay by Jonathan Swift called A Modest Proposal. And in this essay, he proposes a solution to the problem of famine in Ireland. And the solution is to eat our children. Plenty of protein, fresh, not like Oscar Mayer, sort of sealed up and packaged, packed with vitamins and keep you alive. He's writing in response to equally preposterous parliamentary solutions to it that are often ridiculous and it didn't work. And I found myself just howling at this essay. And I was also inspired by the later work of Mark Twain. He became a kind of embittered, angry man late in his life. What he was angry about and embittered about was hypocrisy. He saw it all around him, impiety, sort of false piety. And he wrote some essays that were a mixture of incredibly funny and incredibly bitter, sort of nasty bitter and simultaneous, like a strange combination. And I think that I sort of absorbed a little bit in writing. But here are the first couple of pages. And again, I'm offering just as a sort of a kind of a tone to the book. I had a mark like a moment ago, and now it vanished. I was nervous when I was holding this thing. Okay. An afternoon in late August of the year 2019, after locking up the J.C. Penney store on South Spruce Street, Boyd Halverson strode out to his car, started the engine, sat without moving for several minutes, then blinked and wiped his eyes and resolved to make changes in his life. He had grown sick and tired of synthetics, rayon in particular. That evening, he packed a suitcase. As an afterthought, he tossed in 2 passports, a copy of the Iliad, a pair of swimming trunks. He ate supper and went to bed with a biography of Winston Churchill. Late the next morning, Saturday morning, Boyd attended his bi-monthly Kiwanis French. Midway through the proceedings, he excused himself and made his way across the street to Community National Bank. It was 11:34 a.m. The bank closed at noon on Saturday, and only a single employee was on duty, a diminutive redhead named Angie Bain. Boyd filled out a withdrawal slip, signed his name, and approached the teller. Angie chuckled. "That's a boatload of money," she said. "If you're headed for Vegas, Boyd, take me along." Then she laughed again. She had been flirting with Boyd over the better part of 2 years. He tore up the withdrawal slip. $300 grand we don't have, she said. "What else can I do for you?" "How much is on hand, did you say?" Boyd said. "On hand? I'll want it all." "You're robbing me?" "Not you," Boyd said. He took out his gun and showed it to her. It was not a toy. It was a Temptation 38 Special. Angie Bing managed to scrape up just under $81,000, a significant sum for a small bank in the small town of Boulder, California. Boyd stuffed the cash into a paper grocery bag. I'm sorry about this, he said, but I'll have to ask you to take a ride with me. The rest of the novel follows this sort of small town, polite little robbery. The next 460 pages, we follow Angie, the hostage. He's made her a hostage only so she won't call the cops. He's tried to let her go, but he refuses to go anywhere. He was spending $81,000 on ankle bracelets and nose studs and whatever he could spend money on. And the money is slowly disappearing during the rest of the novel as they travel around on the ridiculous things that she's spending and doing. She is what was called back in my youth a motor mouth. I would think she would not stop talking and does not stop talking. The stories are stories about her youth and about her background in trailer craft and how she made her something out of herself by going to business administration school, specializing in banking, going up to Fulda, getting a job as a teller in this bank. The thing about this bank robbery in particular is the bank doesn't mind being robbed. It's robbing itself. The two owners of this small town bank, a guy named Douglas and his wife Lois, have been embezzling money from their own bank for years and years. Some are now up around $1 million or so. And they don't want to report the robbery because they might be audited and their own robberies will be discovered. So Boyd and Angie begin wondering as the book goes on, and they're driving across America, heading first to Mexico, back to up to LA, southern Texas, to Gulf, through Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, to Minnesota, into South Dakota and North Dakota, down to Vegas, up to Seattle. And throughout this road trip, and it's sort of extended road trip, they're being pursued by Randy, by a guy named Randy, who is Angie's fiance. She's a Pentecostal, very strictly religious woman who's out to save souls, but she has 4 or 5 fiancés that she sort of stacks up. They're self-appointed. They've never proposed to her. She just declares her my fiance. So she's a woman of great contradiction. And to me, a fantastic storyteller about her own life. One example I can just give you that I found fun to write was they're in the car and they're driving through Oklahoma and being pursued by this boyfriend, Randy. And at one point, Angie says that she's at the wheel of the car. So, you know, when I was back in high school, I was a gymnast. She mentioned she's diminutive, very small, slender, kind of pretty young woman. She said I was great at it. I was a great gymnast. I made it up to the finals in Reading. And I did everything great except for the horse. I could not mount or dismount. Could barely get on the thing and certainly couldn't get off. Otherwise, I was terrific in the other events. And following me, although I was in first place, she said, was a woman named Miss Forrest, so she nicknamed her. She did everything right, mount, dismount, and everything in between. In the locker room afterward, after Miss Forrest had won the trophy, Miss Forrest leaves the trophy on a bench in the women's locker room and takes a shower. And she said, I saw it, put it in my gym bag, went onto the bus and went home. And for the next 10 years, I felt a mixture of great pride in the trophy, but also a measure of guilt. After going to business school, I went up to Boulder, California to do an interview for my first job. And I walked in to do the interview, and guess who was there? And Boyd looks over from the passenger seat. He said, Miss Forrest. And she said, no, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's too coincidental. Couldn't have been. You were there. That's how we first met. So she's told for 2 pages an elaborate story, none of which was necessary. All I had to say was I walked in a bank and there you were. And that's how we met. The kind of person is. Um, there's a moral tug of war going on between these two people as they drive across America on this road trip. As I mentioned, she's Pentecostal, she's a missionary, and she's out to save Boyd's soul because of the compulsive lying. It's not going to get you into heaven. And other things too. She dictates his diet. I mean, he likes beef, and she says, I don't want to watch your veins explode. You got to eat, St. John's wort and all this funny, homeopathic medicine. And he struggled back at her. He thinks that lying tickles his tongue, his teeth, and his tonsils. He thinks it's fun. It's entertaining. He loves doing it. He doesn't want to dispense with the only thing in his life that's now any fun for him. He also thinks, as I said earlier, he thinks it's a necessary part of the human condition. He mentions as an example, you know how it is when you pick up the telephone and you call a bank, AT&T or any airline, and you get this recorded message. Our lines are unusually busy. Please enjoy the flute music. Well, the lines aren't unusually, they're always busy. Always. I'm sort of being Boyd now. It's a recorded lie. A demonstrable lie, because they never pick up their phone. And even if they do pick it up, it's after 50 minutes after you've been told the lie. And he said, that's corporate America for you. We're being lied to in ads that'll have the headline saying, free toaster. And then in the fine print is you have to get your life savings in a bank for no interest. That only cost your free toaster. So he's making a case sort of against lying, and one where he's angry at it, at how common it is, and how we come to accept it as Americans. We come to accept that phone thing, we're used to it. Personally, when it happened to me, man, sort of like the television, I'm talking back to the recording, it's saying that you're not unusually busy, you're always busy. Only I say it with a few customers that kind of emphasize my point. So there's this moral tug of war going on between the two. Randy's boyfriend, Randy, I want to say a word about him, Angie's fiance, has been following them throughout this. And his car constantly breaks down, but he's on their trail more or less. She's helping him by sending him postcards to sort of lead him along. And he's a rodeo cowboy who is also a small time criminal, not even sort of. He's a burglar and takes pride in it. He has his own fantasy, which he dreams of being Charles Manson. He wants the celebrity of a serial killer, horror killer. He wants to go to the prison in which Manson is, in prison. That's Portland State Prison in California. He's a doofus. He believes and he loves. I'm a thumb driver. He likes driving with one thumb, and he thinks that's super cool. He thinks the way he dresses is cool. Everything about him, but he's a complete doofus, except he's dangerous, very dangerous. Eventually, Randy catches up with him in Minnesota, one of the sort of elongated stops along the way. And I just wanted to read a short passage where Boyd has also now been appointed Angie's fiance. So now they're getting two fiancés in the same log cabin up in northern Minnesota, and one of them just showed up on Christmas Day. The temperature on Lake Larceny hit minus 12 degrees the next morning and did not move a degree higher over the following 17 days. A 50-ton tree snapped in half at its trunk. The power failed. Cell service was intermittent. A raven fell stone dead on the mansion's back porch. But still another cold front sliding in from North Dakota, and 2 days later, 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 And with the heater frozen solid, Angie helped Randy's apple, that's the boyfriend, prepare a bed of quilts and cushions in front of the great room's fireplace. There would be rules, she explained. Randy just arrived. There will be rules, she explained. No threats, no dirty looks, no uncivilized language. Randy would never speak to Boyd. Boyd would never speak to Randy. And if either of them wished to communicate with the other, it would be done through Angie, who would translate and pass along the gist. Randy swatted the air and said, "Suits me," then flashed a friendly grin at Boyd and said, "Ask the old guy if he ever floated upside down inside a keg of grape juice." Angie said, "Boyd, did you ever?" "I heard him," said Boyd. "Ask if he's James Dean." Angie said, "Randy, are you James Dean?" Randy said, "Ask who the fuck James Dean is." "That is not civilized," said Angie, "but I'll ask. Boyd, tell Randy who James Dean is." Boyd, who lay under a half dozen blankets in a barber's chair, his feet elevated, his head tilted back as if to receive a shave, said, "Inform this ignorant lumphead that James Dean was the third most famous human being in America back in 1956. Matthew McConaughey almost, but no bongos." Randy said, big deal. Tell him I don't." Angie said, "I haven't translated yet. Boyd thinks you look like Matthew McConaughey. Say thank you." "Yeah, thanks," Randy said. "Now ask what a bongo is." "It's a drum, for Pete's sake," said Angie. "Why bother?" "Ask anyway," said Randy. "That's the rule." "Boyd, what's a bongo?" Angie asked. Boyd said, "A bongo, you could say its skin stretched over air, like this imbecile's head." Angie sighed. She was toasting marshmallows on a long, wavy bladed Dakota sword Randy had supplied from the trunk of his car. "Boyd says a bongo is skin stretched over air like your head." "Is that what he says?" Randy said. "Ask him if that's what he said." "Is that what you said?" said Angie. "Word for word," said Boyd. "That's what he said," Angie said. "All right," Randy said, "do me a favor and ask the lover boy if he ever rode a bronc. 2-to-1, you don't know what a bronc is." Angie sighed and said, "Boyd, Randy wants to know." I heard a bronc," said Randy. "It's an abused horse. Now ask Dumbo if he ever played polo." "Both of you," Randy said. "Last warning, act your ages." "Randy, have you ever played polo?" "Yeah, sure." "You played polo?" "Almost positive," said Randy. "Isn't that when you ride big dogs and hit stuff with a hoe?" "I played that game a time or two." "He says he played polo," Angie told Boyd. "Let's stop." "In a minute," said Boyd. "Ask where he picked up his loafers. Ask if he teaches ballet down at the Y." "I better not," Angie said. "Did he say ballet?" said Randy. "Ask." "This isn't civilized," Angie said. "We're stopping." Angie stood up, ate 2 marshmallows off the sword, snuffed out the candles, then slipped into a sleeping bag. "My head hurts," she said. "That's it for the night. Tomorrow we start hacking for California. Day after tomorrow we hit the road, snow or no snow." "Can I bring up one last thing?" Randy asked. "If it's civilized," said Angie. Randy was still grinning his friendly grin at Boyd. "I'm just wondering, can you ask this ancient scumbag if he knows what first dibs means?" "Forget the rules," said Angie. "You ask." "By first dibs, he means he was engaged to her before for the other guy. And I hope you get the sense of the interplay of these characters. It's a book about American lowlife, people on the, not from Madison. They're from another tier of society. And virtually all the characters have grown up as losers throughout their lives. These are the people who are among the disappointed and the despairing and the desperate. I'm writing about the people who make the stuff that you see on the Fox channel and the make the stuff you read on internet chat rooms. It's ludicrous, sort of making up a world for themselves. The rodeo cowboy, the girl who grew up in a trailer home, the father, a minister, but a minister with a congregation of 4, himself, Angie, his wife, Angie's sister, a mother who would throw a stapler at her if she used the Lord's name in vain. And boy, the man doesn't grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. So it's a story about sort of the subsurface of American society. The people who are now occupying the Capitol building, I think January 6th, people who are spouting, for instance, just for one example, the replacement theory that we're against immigration because they're feeding white people of their power and we're being replaced. The same kind of people who seem to want to box up the Statue of Liberty and ship it back to France. You know, give me you're tired, you leave, you're oppressed, you're poor, ship it back. These are the people that I'm writing about, and I'm trying to do with some sympathy and some humor. So that's kind of doing what I just did. You're paraphrasing a book, and it's almost impossible to do. You feel of each syllable that comes out of your breath that you're doing it, that you're degrading your own book by paraphrasing, because you work so hard to write the sentences to make the book. So I have not done justice to the book, and I don't think any novelist, any book could do justice to a book. The best you can do is hope to tempt you to read the first few pages. If you like it, to read the rest. That's what a writer wants. So I'm done with whatever I had to say. Actually, I'm not. I think I could speak for like 6 hours talking about stuff, but I'm done for you guys. And I want to do the fun part now, is respond to whatever questions or comments you guys might have.
I have one.
Yeah.
What book did you pick out today?
I haven't done it yet. I was in New York last night. I live in Austin. I'm not from here. I was there on the book tour. And I was standing in front of a bookstore and I saw like 5 books that I wanted to buy, but when I came in here, I couldn't remember the title of any of them. The only one I remember is the one I didn't want to buy, which was Britney Spears. This is hard to admit. I'm 77 years old. I never heard of Britney Spears until last night. And all I saw was a picture of this slim, good-looking, you know, I didn't know she was a singer. I thought she was a nude model just by the picture. But that's the only book I remember. The ones I wanted, I don't remember any of the titles. I think I will at some point.
Okay, I'll rephrase. What author do you like to read?
I like to read.
Yeah.
Because of my age, I'm rereading a lot of things from my past. I've read almost all in the last couple of months of Joseph Conrad. Even things that most people these days have not read, except but of course, Lord, my Heart of Darkness again. Promo, we read a whole bunch of stuff. And I also reread a book I fell in love with back in my early years in college, called L'étranger in French class, The Stranger. And I was just bewitched by it then. This is a man who was guillotined, executed for apathy, because because he doesn't love his girlfriend enough, or doesn't say so, he doesn't cry at his mother's, wake. And he gets in because he's not empathetic, I mean, he's not only not empathetic, he's not vocal about anything. He killed an Arab guy on a beach, and feels no remorse, feels no much of anything. I'm not even sure that the soul of the main character knew what he was doing. I have a little of that character in me, a sense of I'm not demonstrative enough, and I know it, and I try to fight against it. I'm nothing like that guy. I mean, I'm not cried when my dad died. I'm not that bad, but I've got a little bit in me. But it's the monstrosity of what happened with a society executing somebody for being apathetic. What else have I read recently? There's so many, but I have gone back and using things that I've heard before. Hail Fire, I recently read. Novice. I read Lolita again. I think it's a beautifully written book. The matters to a writer many times of sentences that are fresh, they're grabbing in a new way, not kind of reaching up on the Walmart shelf for language, bringing it down, but fresh expressions for them. Another thought was the genius, like fresh expression. So I'm going back. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I believe that The Things They Carry is one of the most significant books that I have ever read.
One of them.
Top 10. No, I want to thank you so much for writing that book. I mean, it just was amazing. And this afternoon, I was looking at some of the interviews that you've given, and you stated some things that I thought were really, wow, really resonated. You stated that our country expects people to look at us as saviors and saintly and clean-handed. And I think by that clean-handed, you mean that we don't do things that are pretty terrible. And then you referenced the radical militias such as Iraq and Afghanistan, who were not willing to raise their hands up and surrender just to accept their place in a democracy. And then I think this sentence is so important. This thought of curing people of being who they have been for centuries and believing they will adopt our standards or values just doesn't seem possible. And that seems really so true. And I'm just wondering what you're thinking about this current horrible.
I could just turn it around. I still agree with what I said.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah.
But imagine if, say, in Duke, Iowa, radical Muslim people came over and said, you're going to now become a threat. What would happen? So these farmers in Iowa, I grew up in that area. I know what would happen. Shotguns would come out, and probably rightfully so. You cannot force feed politics and belief and conviction and religion. You forward accept them. In Africa, where tribal, politics are in one country like Cameroon, there would be like 80 different tribes with different languages and dialects, but actual languages. And to force feed the tribal chieftain, including Afghanistan, democratic values, the kind of American democracy we practice, seems to be futile and a little presumptuous, maybe even more than a little presumptuous. I don't go around trying to convince my neighbors of my political beliefs. I don't even do it. Even in writing, I'm not trying to score points. I'm not trying to attack anything. I love my country the same way I love my children. I don't love everything my children do. I love my children and my country. It's the same way. And it's not just American. People living in France would say something similar if they were staying people. Love is not the issue for me. I'm so glad I'm an American. I'm so lucky to be an American. But I don't like the undermining of constitutional democracy. I think it's anti-American. And instead of speaking out against it in kind of a political, rhetorical way, I wanted to do it from a character, let their behavior kind of resonate off of what's going on in America. The conversation I picked between a sort of three-way with Andy's translating, I read it for a reason there. One, I think it's humorous, but most important, it's meant to pick up on two irreconcilable sides of this thing. Randy does not like Boyd, and Boyd does not like Randy. There's such different kinds of people, and there can be no meeting of the minds between these people. And there's Andy in there in the middle of the translating. So I read that in kind of in response to what you had to say just now. That's what the point of that was for me. But you want to do it through your characters. A death sentence for a fiction writer is commentary, that is me preaching. It's just a death sentence to a book, and I don't do it. And even in my Vietnam book, I didn't do it. I didn't make political points. I did it through characters and displaying the ugliness and some of the joys that happened during war. You're never more in love, and you're in love with the guy beside you, keeping you alive. Love that guy. He's not falling asleep on guard, he's exhausted while you're sleeping. And during firefights, has your back and so on. So I try to write about it through my characters. And there's not a single American soldier who sort of embodies all this. It's heterogeneous. There's so many different kinds of personalities, backgrounds. And in a way, there were as many Vietnam wars as there were soldiers in the war. And maybe as many Vietnam wars as there were mothers of the soldiers in a war. When you're killed, it's all over. You don't feel sad, you feel dead. But the mothers go on for the rest of their lives. So the feeding 4-year-old woman back in Orlando, Florida, she used to wake up 2 a.m. and say, "Where's my baby?" His baby has been dead for 40 years. So sufferers of war are not just the combatants. Their wives and children and fathers and mothers, and the multiplier effect is enormous. And to get at that through a story, the anecdote I just told you, the 84-year-old woman, is much more powerful than rhetoric. It hits you in a way that the meaning is there, but it's accompanied by the image of an 84-year-old woman, saying dialogue with my babies. That's why I do what I do, why I write stories. Sometimes they make me laugh, sometimes they make me tear up. It just happens. Yeah.
I wondered when you said you stopped writing when you had the boys, what did you do for a living in the meantime?
I didn't have to do much. The thing that carried was such a big step. It was a total surprise, obviously. I wrote the book I did it because I couldn't finish a book called In the Lake of the Woods. I finished it later. I got stuck. And so I wrote it just as I had a lunch with my publisher, told him I'm having trouble finishing the book. And he said, "What are you going to do?" And I was sort of like what you said, and the question, I said, well, and I just made it up on the spot over lunch. I wrote a book with my own name, the main character, but it will be fiction. So I try to convince people that I'm telling the truth, even though it's all made up fiction. And I'm going to use as the central governing metaphor. And before I finish the sentence, the phrase, the thing that carries in my head, I had not thought of it before I finished the sentence. It just popped into my head. And I don't know why I chose the word they, for example, sort of the things I carry, or the things we carry, that it came out of my mouth. I guess that was kind of a desperation to think that I'm going to do something. So the success of the book came as a complete surprise. It was written to sort of bridge myself back to the main project in the Lake the Woods book. So what did I do? I wrote a couple of short stories, but they would take 6 years. We're talking about 20 years to finish one. So I'd work for a day, and then I spent, when the kids were young, I spent all my time with them before they started going to school. I would, because my own dad, as far as I can recall, never said I love you to me. I determined, and I kept a list of the number of times I would say it. You know, it's I chalk it off, just to keep it, and I still do it now, even when they're older. I work it in many times. They're so sick of it. I mean, it's driving me crazy, I think. They're now reciprocating. Now and then they try to beat you to the punch. I think to stop me from saying it. My life was really devoted to those boys. I really wanted to be a decent father, and that meant I wanted to have decent children, that they're kind and patient and loving. I wanted them to be smart and intellectually aware of the world around them. So we'd talk about history at the dinner table and so on. And then we'd tell stories about what happened that day. We all try to think of a funny one. So it was a very close 20 years now relationship with both kids. The younger one now, named Tad, is now a high school senior, now applying to colleges. Did the most brave thing recently. It has nothing to do with my book. You don't buy the book, buy Tad. But he had never played football in his entire life, not in middle school, not in elementary school, all through high school, and in his senior year, he went out for the football team on a dare that another friend had given him. Not only did he make the team, he became the starting right tackle on offense and defense. He looks nothing like me, as you can imagine, a right tackle. Tall and strong and no way fat. He's just all muscle and a big kid. But the risk of failure in Texas, going off to football and being bad at it, you know, that high school, Texas is a disease. Yeah. And one element of the Texas disease is, I don't know, it's not even football, it's something beyond it. It is a sacred right there of some sort. And I got a lot of details I can tell you about this, but what I'm trying to point is that he just failing at something he's never done before, that I don't think I could have done when I was in high school. I don't think I could have mustered that failure, or this failure that he did. So I'm so proud of him. He broke his ankle in the first 2 minutes of a game 2 weeks ago. And he played the whole rest of the game on a broken ankle. Can you believe that? On offense and defense. So he ended up in a cast. Now he has to follow his team. They're playing their final game tomorrow night. They have to taking a bus to Houston from Austin just to be there with you know. Anyway, I'm sorry to have gone on that.
That's great.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Let's do one more question and
Okay. I saw one in the back there.
You mentioned your boys and their high school and college. Have they had to read your book?
Oh, I made a point of not letting that happen. That would have been cruel. To have the kids sitting in class and have a teacher teaching their father's book. And why have them have to talk to some classmate who lies and say, I really love that book. Or try to sort out who's lying and who's telling the truth. And the embarrassment they feel. So I insisted that they don't do it. They've taught in it probably every other high school, you know, around them. In fact, I think all of them around them, but it just didn't seem fair to my kids. So, no. That's what I mean about being, I wanted them to be it, you know, in school. But But it wouldn't have been the right thing to do. I want to say thank you for, I wouldn't have come out here to hear myself, so. Okay, that's a wonderful. Well, thank you for coming.